Okay, so can you tell me, where you were when you found out, like what you were going through, and if you were called into work, etc.?
Oh, that day was obviously a hot day, and I've been mowing, and I luckily got the lawn mowed and saw the sky with the clouds coming in, and I thought, I beat the rain before, get my lawn cut, and the wind started picking up, and the hail started coming in. And I'm a nerd where I'm like, oh, I see some kind of interesting, I'll shoot it and maybe give it for the newscast. We might have some hail damage. But this wind was a lot different. It almost reminded me of the same winds we had back in 2009. We had an inland hurricane that hit some houses here, and it kind of felt that way. And I don't usually get scared on storms, but this thing kind of got me alert. I got my shoes on and got dressed just in case if something was happening. And noticed Doug Hetty was in, and that's not normal. Doug's never in on a Sunday, and seeing Doug was giving a forecast, and he was on for a long time, and saying that there's a chance of a tornado, and I thought, okay, maybe some will hit. Who knows? So I sat on my couch, watched, made sure everything was what it was, and then I saw the Joplin Skycam, saw the black, saw how scary it looked, and realized something's going to happen. And I have a scanner at home. I heard the fire station on Maiden Lane was hit. I thought, okay, this is bigger than I thought. So Bobby, our assignment editor at the time, called me and said, hey, do you have your gear? Go to Joplin. This is probably about 30 minutes after it hit. So that was kind of what I was doing that day. So it was kind of not a normal Sunday for me.
Immediately, you said grab your gear, is what you were told. What did you have to do that night and the morning after that just kind of, wasn't the average normal?
Oh, I got there, and at that point, we didn't know what was hit. Everything was kind of vague, and I was kind of probably one of the first ones in there, so I was listening to stuff on KZRG. I heard Rangeline was hit. Came down 20th out of the Galena, Kansas, and the farther I got east, the more debris, the more wood, the more things I saw, and it kept building and building and building. And the one thing I noticed was at Walgreens, how the water was really flooding the streets, and there was people around cut up, there was people screaming, there was people coming up to me asking me, is there any way where my loved ones were? And you look down 20th, and you couldn't go any farther toward the high school. There was fire trucks, there was cop cars, there was lights, and getting around was hard too, just because on Main Street, things that I remember going by were gone. I didn't know where I was at on some points on Main Street, and then points of like 21st, 22nd, 23rd. I had to count. I had to try to count where I was at. And I got to a point where I didn't know, but I was in a work mode, so I was shooting everything I could. I was running, and at the time I was a little bit heavier, but that time, I was running almost like Steve Prefontaine. Your adrenaline was rushing, trying to find different things to shoot and stuff. And at that same time, I got a phone call from Steve Slifka, his brother, and he said, "Have you seen Steve?" And I said, "Well, did it at his house?" And he said, "We don't know. We don't know." And at that point, I kind of lost emotion because Steve and I were pretty good friends, and I knew Jordan was there. I didn't know if Mike was there. And at that point, I go, "Are they alive or are they dead?" I didn't know. And at that point, Bobby had called me and said, "Go find them." And so at that point, it had gone from work mode to survivor mode, trying to find those guys. And as I went, I found, streets, one-way streets, people were going down, traffic was horrible. I had found, luckily, for some reason, I don't know how I did it, but I found Crystal Albright and her husband. And we got a ride, and we went to where Steve and them were. And I didn't know where Steve's house was. I've been there all the time. Steve and I hung out a lot of time on the weekends. I didn't know where his place was. The only thing I knew was where the Commerce Bank sign was. And from there, I luckily got a call from Eric, and Eric said he is fine. He's a Freeman. He told me Jordan has broken his hip. And at that point, I packed my stuff up, went back to the car, and went back to here. I'm not an on-air guy, so they threw me on air with Dal, and I kind of described what I saw. And I just remember Dal, you know, when we come back, we edit things, you know, particularly, and, you know, much as we can. I just threw stuff on the timeline and let it go. And at that point, I had a lot of friends. You know, I've been in this business. I've been here for 6 years almost. And so a lot of friends, you know, a lot of reporters are in different markets. I had a lot of reporters calling, asking, you know, what's happened. And, you know, at that point, you know, very unsure what had happened. And I've been watching stuff from the Weather Channel and other stations. And at that point, I knew this was going to be a big deal. I knew this was going to be a big, big story for the week. So I was here till about midnight, helping, you know, do what I can, helping the morning show do what they can. Did a morning hit with Zach Fletcher. And so I went home, took a shower, and lay down, and I couldn't sleep. So I had literally, like, was up for almost about 24 hours at that point. Got the live truck out there, and that was the first time I saw St. John's. And that was one of the eeriest feelings ever. Was going over there and just seeing the hospital, like, kind of lit up, but dark at the same time, and just seeing all the devastation just torn up. And then every live truck was there. You know, Al Roker was there, Sam Champion was there. It was weird just because, like, you see all these people, like in Haiti, you see these people in Alabama working, and now they're here working, and you're working with them. And at this point, you know, this is what I came for this job for. This is what I live for. And so it's kind of a surreal moment working with all those people at the same time.
Definitely. If you were to choose one word, and you have to tell me why, first off, you know, just say the word and then explain it if you could. When you found out the amount of the total devastation, I mean, obviously tornadoes are very common in this area. Mm-hmm. You know, when you found out exactly, what point was it, you know, where were you at when you were like, oh my gosh? And what one word would you choose to describe what you felt?
I had to say that Monday morning after the morning show, Zach and I drove down 26. It was unreal. Unreal. I mean, this is, you know, I'm from Columbus, Kansas, but Joplin is kind of home. Pittsburgh, Joplin's home to me. And it was unreal just to see everything flattened. It was unreal to see people in chaos. It was unreal to see the death toll. It was unreal just to, you know that this is in for the long haul. This is not going to be a, you know, a lot of times we do a story, it's maybe 1, 2 days, we're done. Not this. This thing, we've been doing this thing for, you know, 6, 8, 7 months. It's still going on. It'll be going on for the next 2, 3 years. So one of those things where I think it's going to touch people. I think it's going to touch people for the next, you know, 10, 20 years.
Definitely. That's pretty much it. Is there anything that you want to say, you know, people that work at this station 50 years from now are going to be able to look at this and, you know, realize like who was working, what they went through and everything. Mm-hmm. Anything that really sticks out to you or anything that you want to say, any advice, anything at all that you want to say to the community?
It's unreal to know that how much people rely on you. Things we were, you know, doing through Twitter, things we were doing through, you know, Newspath, things we were doing here locally. It was crazy what people recognized, what people saw, what people remembered. And, you know, it was important for us to be out there. And I think it's, you know, I think this is what, you know, people, you know, we cover bad things, we cover good things, you know, and there's people who kind of, you know, argue what we cover. But that was the one time in my life I felt like my job really was a staple of my life. Like I might kind of made a statement. I kind of made, you know, I helped others, you know, at that point and informed people. There was people that night just texting me that night and asking me because I was on scene. So it was kind of neat to know. It's not neat that the tornado hit, but it was neat to know that was a part of something so big, and that some people will remember, and that you were you're a big factor of. So.
One more thing, okay? As a photog, like you are a cameraman, like you have that ability to shoot things, you know, see things that maybe others don't. And going out there and shooting debris, shooting people climbing out of their homes, like all this horrible stuff. Do you think that maybe like while you were out there, you got some slack? Like maybe people were, you know, like, hey, put down the camera, help us out. Or do you think people were understanding of what you were trying to do for the media?
People were very understanding. I mean, I had a couple people kind of, you know, say some things, you know, like, why you're here, but people were, you know, very understanding. That people understood that we had a job to do, and people understood those images were going to go out to other markets, to other parts of the country, other parts of the world, and those were the images that brought, you know, the help into Joplin. And I think it's one thing people understood, that the PR and the media side of this is what brought people in. So, you know, the thing I learned, and I talked to Jordan Aubie about this, our reporter at the time, the damage is going to be there. The damage is still there right now, 6 months. Don't focus on the damage. The thing I think we need to focus on next time on a disaster like this are the people. People's emotions when it's happening, because that is an emotion that I can't describe it, that happens at the moment. It'll be different versus like the 2 days or a couple hours later. If you see an emotion in somebody, you know, somebody's, you know, crying or hugging, that's kind of emotion you need to grab. You know, police officers, you know, EMT, them helping, that kind of stuff. And like I said, the damage is going to be there. The damage will be there for months. So I think the thing that, you know, when a disaster like this happens, try to, you know, grab more, you know, people and, you know, people running and the chaos, that kind of emotion.